Um, all right, so welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this one.
Hey there, I'm your resident expert, and yeah, I completely agree. We have a lot of ground to cover today.
We really do. So I want you to picture something for a second. It's a feeling we all know, unfortunately. You're holding something valuable. Maybe it's a career path you spent 10 years building, or a relationship,
Or
or
even just your grandmother's favorite ceramic mug.
exactly, just something you care about. And then you drop it. It hits the floor, and you hear that sickening crack.
That awful slow motion moment where you realize you can't stop it.
Right. And in that split second, you have to make a choice. And usually, especially in our culture, we think there are really only two options. Option A is, you know it's trash, it's ruined, sweep it up, throw it in the bin, and just try to forget you ever owned it.
Right, the disposable mindset. If it's not perfect, it's garbage.
Yeah. Or there's option B, where you panic, you grab the super glue and try to stick the pieces back together so perfectly that no one will ever know what happened.
You try to hide the damage.
You want the invisible mend. You just want to turn back time.
Which is essentially just a form of denial when you think about it. We equate value with perfection. So if it's broken, it's worthless unless we can pretend it was never broken at all.
But today, we are diving into a source that suggests there is a third option, an option that sounds almost crazy to our modern ears. What if the break isn't the end of the object's value, but actually the beginning of it?
What if the damage is the most interesting part?
Exactly. It is a beautiful concept for where we are right now. We're looking at an essay by John Novick. It's titled The Golden Repair: Resilience and the Kintsugi Mindset.
And we should clarify right off the bat, we're not doing a pottery deep dive today.
No, definitely not. Though the pottery is the central metaphor here. This essay is actually a specific installment in Novick's America Actually series.
Which is really important context. If you follow Novick, you know America Actually isn't about arts and crafts. It's a pretty hard-hitting look at the socio-political landscape.
He's usually dissecting policy or cultural trends.
Right, so while he starts with art here, he's aiming at something much bigger. He's building a bridge between personal burnout leadership crises and specifically the fractured state of the United States in the year 2026.
It is a bridge between ancient aesthetics and modern survival. So the mission for this deep dive is clear. We are going to explore how a centuries-old artistic technique might be the psychological key to surviving and maybe even thriving in the chaotic landscape we find ourselves in right now in 2026.
Let's do it.
We have to start with the metaphor itself. The essay is anchored in this concept of kintsugi. Now, I'd heard of this before, but mostly just on aesthetic blogs or, social media. Can you break down what it actually is beyond just a cool visual?
Well, it is very cool visually, but the philosophy is what really matters. Kintsugi is the ancient Japanese art of repairing broken pottery, but it is radically different from how we repair things in the West.
Because of the invisible mend we talked about.
Exactly. We want to erase the history of the break.
Right. If I glue a plate, I really don't want to see the glue line.
But in Kintsugi, the artisan takes the broken shards and puts them back together using a special lacquer that is mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum.
So instead of trying to make the crack disappear, they are literally highlighting it with gold.
Yes. They are making the break the most visible part of the object.
That is fascinating.
It's what Novick calls an anti-trash mentality. The philosophy fundamentally rejects the idea that because something is shattered, it's garbage. But it also refuses to pretend the object was never broken.
It's not just recycling then. It's elevating the object.
Novick references a note from the BBC in the source material that sums it up perfectly. They point out that we live in an age of mass production and quick disposal. If a mug breaks, we just buy a new one on Amazon, right?
And it arrives the next day identical to a million other mugs.
Exactly. It has no history. It has no soul. Kintsugi is a rebellion against that. It says that accepting and celebrating scars is a lesson in humanity and sustainability.
Because when you repair that specific mug with gold, it becomes completely unique. You can't mass produce a break.
Right. The break shatters the uniformity. And the result isn't just a fixed pot. It's a new piece of art. The cracks become these golden rivers running through the ceramic. Novick points out it's arguably more beautiful because it broke.
See, that's the phrase that trips me up sometimes. Beautiful because it broke. It sounds great on a greeting card, but in real life, when you fail at something or get fired or a relationship ends, it doesn't feel beautiful. It feels like a total disaster.
And that is a very valid reaction. Nobody enjoys the breaking part.
I don't think anyone looks at a car crash and says, wow, look at the potential for gold lacquer here.
No, you're right. And I think that's exactly why Novik doesn't stop at the art. He connects this directly to the psychology of resilience. He knows that celebrating scars is a really heavy lift for the human brain.
Right. He didn't just stumble upon this in a museum. He connects this to a keynote address he attended a few years ago in Chicago.
Yeah. Yes. The speaker was Dr. Michelle Buck. She's a clinical professor of leadership at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. And the setting matters here. She was speaking to heads of independent schools.
So people dealing with immense pressure, managing parents, students, boards, budgets, people who probably feel broken on a weekly basis.
High burnout roles, absolutely. Her talk was titled Resilience, Maximizing Leadership Impact and Well-Being.
Okay, I have to stop you there.
Right there.
Because resilience is one of those words that is just everywhere now. Corporate training, sports psychology. To me, it usually just sounds like code for toughen up and stop complaining.
A lot of people feel that way. It's often weaponized to make people just endure bad conditions, just bounce back, be rubber, not glass.
Right. But Dr. Buck flips that script using the Kintsugi metaphor.
She does. She points out that Kintsugi roughly translates to golden repair. And her argument is that psychologically we need to do the exact same thing. We should not repress our cracks. We shouldn't avoid them or be ashamed of our vulnerabilities.
Which is easier said than done. We are conditioned to hide our struggles, especially in leadership. If you're the boss, you're not supposed to crack.
Oh, it's incredibly difficult. But Dr. Buck argues we must fill those cracks with gold. That means taking the experience, acknowledging it, and integrating it to create something authentic.
And this brings us to the nugget from the research that actually stopped me in my tracks. Novik shares a specific finding from Dr. Buck regarding personality traits.
The one about optimism.
Yes. Because if I asked most listeners what the #1 trait of a resilient person is, I bet they'd say positive thinking or optimism.
That is the common assumption. We think resilience is just looking on the bright side.
But that's not what the research says.
Not at all. Dr. Buck shared that the only characteristic that correlates more with resilience than optimism is realism.
Realism.
It's so counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is, because we usually think of realists as the people who bring the mood down. The people who say, well, statistically, this won't work. How is that the fuel for resilience?
Think about it this way. If you were purely optimistic, you might just be in denial. You might look at that shattered pot on the floor and say, it's fine, I can still hold soup in this.
When you clearly can't, that's not resilience, that's delusion. And eventually you're going to get burned by the hot soup.
Exactly. You cannot fix what you do not acknowledge is broken. The formula Dr. Buck proposes and what Novik is highlighting is a synthesis. Resilience equals optimism plus realism.
Walk me through that equation. How do those two work together?
Well, you have to admit it's broken first. That is the realism. You acknowledge the difficulty. You look at the shards and say, this is a disaster, this hurts, this is not what I wanted.
You have to literally stare the damage in the face.
Yes. Then and only then the optimism kicks in. The optimism isn't pretending it didn't break. The optimism is the belief that says, and now I can build something new from this.
That is a massive distinction. It's not toxic positivity. It's grounded hope.
Grounded hope is a perfect way to put it. You aren't dismissing the impact of the challenge. You are using it as the raw material for the repair. If you skip the realism, you're just gluing it back together with invisible tape and praying it holds.
So let's apply this to the self. Novik and Buck talk about personal sustainability.
Right. We often treat ourselves like mass-produced products. If we burn out or fail, we feel like we should just be discarded. Or we try the invisible mend.
We pretend we didn't get fired. We pretend we aren't struggling with anxiety. We edit our lives to look completely unbroken.
It's the Instagram filter for the soul.
Exactly. But the actionable advice from Dr. Buck is the opposite. Don't hide what you have endured. Novik uses the word commemorate. We should commemorate the experience.
Commemorate, that's a powerful word.
It sounds like something you do for a historical monument.
Well, your life is a series of historical events. If you use the struggle to become stronger for the experience rather than despite it, you are actively engaging in that golden repair.
Which brings up authenticity. Dr. Buck emphasizes that this process affirms our capacity for remaking.
It turns challenges into opportunities for authenticity. Think about the leaders you respect most. Do you trust the one who claims they've never made a single mistake?
No.
Or do you trust the one who says, I messed this up, here is what I learned, and here is how we are stronger now?
You trust the leader with the gold cracks. every time.
Because they have proven they can survive, they have integrated the break.
Okay, so we've got the art, we've got the psychology of leadership. But we need to remember, this is the America Actually series. Novick isn't just writing a self-help guide for burnt-out executives.
No, and this is where we have to pivot to the broader context. Novick is writing this for a very specific moment in time. He's looking at the calendar, and it's 2026.
Right. And as we get into this, we want to be very clear with you, the listener. We are not taking sides here politically. We are just impartially reporting on how Novick applies this Kintsugi framework to his view of the nation.
Exactly. We are looking at his argument. And he doesn't pull any punches about how he sees this moment. He describes what he calls a broken America.
The language he uses is quite stark. He says it feels like a country beyond repair.
He does. He characterizes the U.S. as a democratic republic on the ropes. And he cites specific challenges driving this. He points to unbridled greed, corruption, criminality, and brutality at the top.
It is a very bleak assessment of the landscape in 2026. And regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, that feeling of things being broken or chaotic is something a lot of people are resonating with. It feels fragile.
It goes right back to that feeling of the shattered pot. If you look at the country and see greed and corruption, the instinct is to say, well, the experiment failed. Throw it in the trash.
That's the apathy response. It's broken, so I'm done. I'm checking out.
Or the other instinct is the invisible mend. Everything is fine. This is just how it is. Let's pretend it's decades ago.
Nostalgia as a form of denial.
Exactly. But Novick is arguing for the Kintsugi approach to citizenship.
What does that actually look like? Applying gold lacquer to a government.
Metaphorically, yes. Novick's central argument for this series is that just as a person shouldn't discard their broken parts, citizens shouldn't discard the country or their hope for it.
So applying the realism plus optimism formula to the nation itself.
Yes, and this is the hardest part. The realism is acknowledging the madness, as Novick calls it. Not pretending that the corruption or brutality isn't happening, not looking away because it's uncomfortable. You have to admit the pot is shattered.
That's the realism. And the optimism.
The optimism is believing there is a way to right itself again. That the broken pieces, the institutions, the communities, the norms can be put back together. And not to look like they did 20 years ago, but to be something entirely new that incorporates the history of the break.
So the Kintsugi mindset is a path forward to preserve optimism. If you don't have that mindset, you either succumb to despair, which is all realism, no optimism.
Or you live in Fantasyland, which is all optimism and no realism.
Precisely. And Novick wonders if this mindset isn't the only path forward. He suggests it is a way to navigate the years to come without losing our souls or our country. It's recognizing that the United States isn't a factory-perfect item anymore. It has deep, jagged cracks.
The question is, do we see those cracks as the end of the story or the beginning of the golden repair?
It's such a powerful image. And it shifts the responsibility, too. We aren't just observers of the breakage. We are the artisans with the gold.
We're the ones who have to do the mixing and the applying. It doesn't happen automatically. The gold doesn't just appear out of nowhere. You have to actively choose to apply it.
So what does this all mean for us listening right now? We've gone from a pottery studio in Japan to a leadership conference in Chicago, all the way to the political reality of 2026.
It is a sweeping journey, but the thread is entirely consistent. Whether it is a coffee mug, your own mental health, or the future of the republic the principle holds.
It's that combination.
Yeah.
Realism plus optimism.
You have to look the damage in the eye. You cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. That is the lesson from Dr. Buck. But once you acknowledge it, you have to refuse to throw it away. That is the lesson from Kintsugi.
And for Novick writing in America, actually, that is the prescription for the nation. We can't pretend things are fine because they aren't, but we also can't just give up.
That is the sweet spot of resilience, finding the will to repair when it would be so much easier to discard.
I have to say, I'm going to look at my own scars a little differently after this deep dive. And I don't just mean physical ones.
It changes your perspective on history, personal history and national history. It stops being a list of failures and starts being a map of resilience.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with something to chew on. We've talked a lot about the goal today, but I keep thinking about the alternative, the sheer amount of energy we spend hiding things.
What is fascinating is the choice we make every single day. If we are all walking around with cracks, and the data and life experience tells us we are we currently trying to paint over them to look perfect?
Are we spending all our energy on that invisible mend? Because it takes a lot of energy to pretend you're perfect. It's exhausting.
It drains you completely. So the provocative question to take away is this. Are you ready to fill those cracks with gold and let people see the history? Which approach actually makes you stronger? Hiding the damage or highlighting it?
I think we know which one makes for a better piece of pottery.
Yeah.
The question is whether we're brave enough to do it with our lives
And our country.
and our country. That is a wrap for this deep dive into the golden repair. A huge thank you to the ideas of John Novick and Dr. Michelle Buck for fueling this conversation.
Absolutely.
Take care of yourselves and maybe go check your cupboards for any broken mugs. There might be a masterpiece waiting in there. We'll see you next time.